Yes, sir.
Uh, I think we can start now. If you,
Okay, so everybody have joined. Should I start?
yeah. Yes, sir. Remaining will join soon.
Okay, or we can wait for 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure, sure.
because
Yes, sir.
everybody will actually connect.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I think we can start. Hello, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir. We can start now.
Okay, so very good morning to you all. Okay, so now let us start our next section. Okay, so in the first session, as we can see that we have understood the introductory part about the soft robotics. We have also gone through the importance about the soft robotics in our current scenario, and we have also gone through the fundamentals about how we can design the smart soft actuator based on dielectric material as well as the silicon based soft actuators. Now, after having a look about the introductory part, let us try to understand what is the mechanics behind these soft material, or we can say that the soft robotics are involving. Okay, so for that one, so I'm again trying to introduce you that we are not going to the mechanics about the uh, electrical material, or you can say that electrical input to the soft material or smart materials. We have seen that due to time constraint, we are restricting ourselves that we are going to understand the mechanics when we are applying the mechanical force into the soft material, then what will happen. So ultimately, we are trying to understand that when we are applying any load or any mechanical force into the soft rubber or soft material, then what is how much deformation actually will it get. Okay, so we will try to model it, and how this calculation we will actually try to understand how this calculation will happen. Okay, so for that one we have to let me try to tell you that the soft materials are generally called elastic material, which we have already known. So elasticity, the property which we have already learned from our higher secondary level understanding. So, but in the extension of that one, we have only understood the Hooke's law. Okay, so Hooke's law actually deals you actually will tell you that what is the deformation you are having when you are applying any load, mostly in the linear part or very small range of deformation it will talking about. But if we are increasing the deformation range, okay, suppose we are extending the rubber like material or soft material up to 200 times, 300 times, 400 times, then this Hooke's law, as we have already known, that F is equal to Kx. K is the spring constant. Like, it means stiffness of the material related to some elasticity. Okay, so it will not give the proper information how the deformation will actually whenever we are interested to calculate this type of deformation. So there is a limitation of Hooke's law. Okay, so but then what we have to calculate, how we have to make the calculation about the nonlinear elasticity. So ultimately here the word we are including in elasticity the nonlinear elasticity. So ultimately, this Hooke's law, we are improving, or we will explore the Hooke's law in terms of non-linearity. Okay, so ultimately the elasticity, we are actually shifting to the non-linear elasticity, and this non-linear elasticity also we term it as a actually as a modeler, we will call it as a hyperelasticity. So the mechanics of this soft actuator actually we are understanding from the continuum mechanics. So continuum mechanics uh, is the ultimate, you can say that, the leader of the mechanics through which we can understand the mechanics of the solid material, mechanics of the fluid materials, fluid type of, fluids we can understand. We can understand the mechanics of the even gaseous particles. So ultimately, the supreme physics or continuum, supreme physical understanding we are getting through the continuum mechanics. Okay. So ultimately, in the continuum mechanics, we are restricting ourselves into the understanding about the mechanics of the soft material or hyperelastic material. That's why we have written here hyperelastic material modeling. It's just tutorial number 1. So before we start, we have to understand uh, how this hyperelastic material can be defined. Okay, in rough sense, we have understand. Okay, non-linear elasticity. We called it as a hyperelasticity. Okay, so but in case of material, in the case of definition perspective, how we can define it. Okay, so basically, any hyperelastic material, uh, uh, in any hyperelastic material, if we are trying to define the stress response, ultimately stress response means you can say that or you can say that I hope so most of the students are belonging to the mechanical background. If they are belonging to mechanical background, they can easily connect the stress word. But if we are belonging to electrical or any other branches, so let me explain you the stress first. So stress is nothing but whenever you are applying any load into the material, any type of material. Okay, so any type of material is having some resistance. Okay, so it will try to resist anything if we are doing externally into the material. Okay, so that internal resistance, if we want to measure per unit uh, area or per unit cross section, if we have taken in that material, so that is called the stress. Okay, we will generally define stress as a internal resistance per unit area. Okay, we have taken a small cross section in the material and we want to measure it the internal resistance by applying the external loading. So that is defined as the stress. Okay, so here in the similar sense, we are also interested to calculate the internal resistance in the soft material, and again we will take a small cross section. Okay, and we are applying any loading. So of course, we are restricted ourselves as a mechanical loading. So we have applied mechanical loading into the soft material, and we want to calculate or we want to measure the internal resistance. Okay, so that we call it as a stress response. Okay, so how we can measure it? So for the measuring purpose, we first have to understand the potential energy density. Okay, so I will explain each of the term, whatever we are looking here. Okay, so ultimately, for defining the hyperlastic material, we have a simple definition that if in any material, if we are interested to calculate or if we are interested to measure the stress response, we can get these type of information if we have defined the potential energy or total energy of this rubber-like material system. Okay, so this, if we can do it, then we will define these type of material in the class of hyperelastic material. Okay, fine. Now let us try to understand what is potential energy density function. So potential energy is nothing but you can connect the total energy of any system, or sorry, of soft material system is having. Okay, it is the combination of so many form of energy, like mechanical energy, internal energy of the system, and the vibrational energy. So in what level you want to extend, you can extend it. So this is ultimately total energy per unit volume of any soft material. So that's why we are using here the word density. Okay, so potential energy density function. So first, what we have to do, we are interested to calculate the stress response in any soft material. We have to first define the total energy of the system per unit volume. Okay, so that we have defined as potential energy density function. Okay, so based on that, we can get the calculation about the stress response. Okay, fine. So here, one thing also, we are making a simple assumption for defining the smart rubber or soft materials. We are restricting, we are making assumption that material is incompressible. Okay, although practically the rubber is not incompressible, sometimes it may be compressible. Okay, so incompressible means we are making or we are assuming that the material volume we are not changing, means after and before loading the material is not, means material volume is constant. Okay, so that is we have written it has as a incompressibility condition. Okay, so that we are assuming that. Okay, isotropic, we are also putting another assumption that whatever material we are actually playing here, that is considered as a isotropic, as an isotropic. Isotropic means whatever the material properties. Okay, so what are the different type of material properties we can define? Okay, so again, it's a little bit mechanical terminology I'm going to use here. Okay, so mechanical material property which we are talking about, the like Young modulus. I hope so. Little bit information you are having through your higher secondary level. Okay, Young modulus of elasticity. So ultimately related to elastic property. Okay, so that type of properties which we are talking about, that we are assuming that that in all the direction, means whatever the direction we are looking, these type of material properties we are considering that these are not varying. Okay, so ultimately we have made two assumptions, okay, for the modeling of the soft material behavior. Okay, okay, so incompressible and isotropic. Incompressible means volume remain constant before and after loading or deformation, and the material properties are not varying with respect to the direction. Okay, fine. So this is the total potential energy. So for defining the total potential energy, we have so many models. Okay, so as we have discussed that, okay, potential energy are nothing but the total energy, total mechanical energy uh, actually stored in the system or stored in the soft material based system. Okay, that has been defined in so many available material form. Okay, so these are the listed material models like New Hookean model, Mooney-Rivlin model, Dent model. These are the few of them. There are so many other models as well. Okay, so uh, we will also have a look another model. Okay, so these are the strain energy density function, means total energy, total mechanical energy through this model we can define into the rubber-like material or any soft material. Okay, fine. So we have defined the, we will get the expression about the total energy or energy density through using these models. Okay, fine. Now we are interested to calculate the stress response in case of rubber-like material or soft materials. Okay, so for that we have actually, I'm not going into detail. So just like you can connect that, we have Hooke's law. Okay, so Hooke's law actually relating the stress response with respect to deformation. Okay, so in the similar like you can say that we also having another explored relation. Okay, or more advanced relation, you can say that. Okay, so that has been derived from the continuum mechanics. Okay, based on the so many actually balance principle we have applied. I'm not going through in detail. Okay, so this is the expression. Okay, just you can relate with the simple Hooke's law. Okay, so what are the terminology here we have used? So I'm going to explain one by one. Okay, So here you can see that the sigma is the stress, okay, stress which we are actually interested to measure it. Okay, and here you can see that there is a deformation tensor. Okay, so B is nothing but the deformation which we can measure it in the material. Okay, so B, later on I will define how we can actually define this deformation tensor. Okay, so B is the deformation tensor, and so many quantities here you can see that omega 1, omega 2, and I is the identity matrix. Okay, so here actually all the stress whatever we are going to define, these are written in the form of tensor. Okay, so material, okay, so I hope so. Stress, sorry, tensor also you already little bit information. So tensor is nothing but the, you can say that the generalized quantity, sorry, generalized physical actually quantity through which you can say that everything comes under that category, means a scalar or vector, everything you can generalize it in the form of tensor. Okay, so here everything written in the form of tensor. So here what we have actually connected, so we have connected the stress tensor in terms of deformation, and whatever the omega 1, omega 2 are written here, these are nothing but the derivative of this total energy. Omega are the total energy, means whatever the energy density we have seen, we will get through these defined model. Okay, so and also at the same time, later on everything will be clear when we will forward a little bit slowly. Okay, so here in this total energy can be written in the form of small quantity in terms of stretch. We will also define the stretch. Stretch is nothing but the how much elongation you have actually made into the rubber like material. So it can be it has been actually written in the form of stretch or in form of invariants, and invariants are the function of stretch. Okay, you will try to understand later on. Everything will be clear to you. Okay, so omega 1 and omega 2 are nothing but the derivative of this total energy with respect to the corresponding invariants. Means omega 1 is nothing but the partial derivative or derivative of this total energy with respect to first invariant, and similarly omega 2 is the derivative of this total energy density with respect to the second invariant, and I will explain how these invariant you will actually get. So these invariants are nothing but the actually invariants of this deformation tensor B. Okay, little bit you will understand later. Okay, so now let us try to connect whatever the configuration we have understood in our first session. Okay, so let's see, we are taking a very fundamental type of configuration, this plate type of configuration. Okay, everything is clear. I think I got message that your camera is not connected. Can you confirm me everything is clear? You can see my slide. Hello, please confirm me. Hello.
It's clear. Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay. I don't know why suddenly my camera is got switched off. Okay, fine, no problem. Okay, so now we have seen in the first session that very fundamental configuration is the plate type of configuration. Okay, so suppose we have a very plate type of configuration made of simple rubber. Okay, you can take any type of simple rubber. Okay, let's say it is having length L, width B, and some thickness capital H. Okay, so here you can see that in the before deformation, okay, we have not applied any load into the configuration. Okay, so we are defining the dimension in the capital letter. Okay, so this is a terminology. Okay, we are following. Okay, capital L length, capital B width, and capital H is the thickness of the plate configuration before loading. Okay, and suppose we have applied the loading, mechanical force we have applied in the particular direction, let's say in X direction. Okay, that's why we will call it as a uniaxial deformation of the rubber sheet. Okay, so why uniaxial? Means we are applying the loading, mechanical loading into the particular single direction. Okay, in X direction, let's say. Okay, so whenever we have applied the load, it will get deformed, of course. Okay, so after deformation, of course, the dimension, whatever we are having, capital L, capital B, capital H, it will change. Okay. So let's say after loading, the changed dimensions are small l, small b, and small h. Means before deformation, the length dimensions were in capital letters, and after deformation, we have written the dimension in the lower letter, small l, small b, small l. Okay, so these we can you can see here lbh before deformation, small l, small b, small h after deformation. Now we are going to define a simple parameter that is called it stretch. Okay, so stretch, how we are defining? Stretch means deformation. Okay, we are trying to define the deformation into the rubber like material. Okay, so how we have defined? So we have defined this stress as the ratio of the deformed length to the undeformed length. Okay, okay, so if you are talking about the length, okay, in x direction, if you are talking about, let's say, L, okay, so we can define lambda 1 means stretch or deformation in the x direction. So what is the deformed length after deformation, small l, and what is the uh, dimension, or what is the length before deformation, we are having capital L. So we can make this ratio and we can define this lambda 1, that we called it as a deformation in x direction, or we can say it stretch in x direction. And similarly, we can also define in the y direction. So we can define lambda 2 as the deformed width small b to the undeformed width capital B. Similarly, we can define the lambda 3 stretch in z direction, or we can say that the thickness direction. H undeformed small h, and sorry, deformed small h to the undeformed small capital H. Okay, fine. So this is the first parameter we have defined here, stretch. So physically, it signifies the deformation. It is going to measure the deformation. Fine. At the same time, as we have seen that we have made one assumption, that we are assuming that the volume remains constant. Of course, before and after deformation, whatever the volume is there, that is not going to change. Okay, so volume initial and volume final, we can equate them together. Okay, so we can derive the incompressibility condition for the material. Okay, so we can write it down: initial volume capital L times B times capital H, and after deformation, whatever the dimension we are having, we can also write the volume expression: small l times b times small h. Okay, and we can also write it down like that: capital L, small l by capital L, and similarly small b by capital B, small h by capital H. Okay, and we have already defined this L by L as a lambda 1, b by b as an lambda 2, h by h as a lambda 3. Okay, so we can say that yes, the whatever the incompressibility condition we have said physically, the mathematical expression for that condition we can actually we have derived in terms of stretch. We can write it down as lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 is equal to 1. So this is the condition for, this is the mathematical expression about the incompressibility condition. Okay, fine. Now what we are doing? Okay, so now for each direction we have defined the stretches. Okay, now what we are writing? We are writing in terms of the tensor. Okay, so here now we are going to define another quantity, the deformation gradient tensor. Okay, so what is the deformation gradient tensor? See, whatever we have defined the stretches in scalar form, okay, in each direction. Okay, so in the form of tensor, if we are trying to write it down, okay, so we can utilize, see, we have defined the stretches in the principal direction. Principal direction means x direction, y direction, and z direction. Okay, so in the principal direction, if we want to write in terms of the tensor, okay, deformation gradient tensor, we can write it down like that. Okay, so we can write it down stretches in the corresponding direction as a diagonal term of the 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, so it will actually, it is a tensor, it is the deformation gradient tensor. Okay, so basically it is a position vector deformed configuration with respect to the undeformed position vector. Okay, just like that we have defined the stretch. Okay, stretch undeformed length, sorry, deformed length to the undeformed length. In the similar sense, in the 3D sense, in the 3D actually space, you can define the tensor position vector after deformation, position vector before deformation. Okay, so based on that, you can define this deformation gradient tensor. Okay, fine. Now, at the same time, see, we can also go through the mechanics of this, whatever the soft actuator. See, you can see that through the hyperelasticity theory or continuum mechanics based theory, equivalent to the Hooke's law, okay, we have defined the stress in terms of B. So B is also nothing, B is also a deformation tensor. But actually, we can also rewrite this expression in terms of whatever we have defined recently, the left Cauchy, this deformation gradient tensor. But little bit, what will happen? Calculation will become difficult. Okay, so you are not actually understanding. It's okay, but actually, whenever you will feel, whenever you understand all the things, you will feel that for making the calculation easier, we are actually writing all the deformation in terms of this new deformation tensor B. This is called left Cauchy Green tensor. Okay, this is again physics is same. You can say that this is also a deformation tensor. This is also a deformation tensor. So this is a newly type of deformation tensor. How it can be, how it has been actually expressed. So we can write it as a FFT. Means FFT is the transpose of this matrix. You can say that, or the tensor of deformation gradient tensor. Okay, so what will happen, all the things will become as a square. Okay, so B, you can write it down, you can easily calculate lambda 1 square, lambda 2 square, and lambda 3 square in the principal diagonal. So this is also again, so I'm again saying that physically they are both actually sensing the deformation. Okay, but why we are using this newly type of deformation gradient tensor? To make the calculation easier. Okay, fine, because all the things will come in terms of square sense. Okay, so negative, whatever you are dealing, compression, whatever you're dealing, extension, it will take care. Okay, okay, fine. So now we have defined the deformation gradient tensor. Fine, you can see that in the expression of the stretch. Okay, stress tensor, all the things has been written in terms of deformation gradient tensor B, and all the things are written in terms of this uh, energy density omega 1. Omega 1, which we have already seen, derivatives of this energy with respect to the invariant. And now let us try to define what are the invariants I1, I2, I3 are there. Okay, so invariants, so I hope so you have studied in the linear algebra. See, in the case of mechanics of soft actuator, little bit some mathematics we have to use. Okay, so by using the linear algebra, you have seen that if you are having any matrix, okay, so you can easily calculate the invariants. Invariants are related to their eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Okay, so based on that, whatever the eigen values you can get from this actually from this matrix, based on that you can define the invariance. Okay, so invariance you can define based on these stretches. Okay, so lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. Okay, so lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 are nothing but the eigenvalues of this matrix. Okay, so by using this trace, what means I1 is defined as a trace. Okay, so trace means you are adding all the components of the diagonal elements. Okay, so just like that you can define the invariants. Okay, you can have the understanding about the invariants, you can go through from any linear algebra book. Okay, so we have defined three invariants from this matrix 3 by 3, lambda 1 square, lambda 2 square, lambda 3 square, all the terms are 0. Okay, so we have three invariants I1, I2, I3. All the invariants are the function of principal stretches, which we have already defined for the given configuration. Okay, so all the things has been connected. Okay, so now come to the relation of the stress response or stress tensor Okay, so what we have? So sigma here, again, one thing is remain minus P. So here you will know that P is the pressure. Okay, this is called Lagrange pressure. You will already know. We have to actually all the things has been actually this pressure is actually related with the compressibility constraint. Okay, so we have assumed here incompressibility means volume remains constant. So if the material will actually change, means volume little bit change, that will take care in the assumption of incompressibility. This is called the Lagrangian, you can say that multiplier. Okay, so here omega 1 you have understood, derivative of total energy with respect to the first invariant, and invariants are nothing but the invariants has been calculated from the deformation gradient tensor B. Okay, so B is already you have defined using the by defining the stretches in the principal direction, lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. So all the parameters has been, I hope so, interconnected together. So nothing is remain. Okay, now let us move forward. After calculating all the defined parameter, so what now we have to get the expression about the energy density. Okay, so there is a lot of physics behind this defining the total energy density. So physically, for the basic understanding, we can say that yes, uh, energy density, we have defined the total energy stored, mechanical energy stored into the rubber-like material. Okay, so we have a lot of model here for defining that one. So all the energies in the soft material has been defined in terms of stretches, or either you can say that in terms of invariant, because invariants are actually written in terms of stretches, means invariants are the function of stretches. So ultimately we can say that yes, energy has been defined in terms of invariants, either in terms of stretches ultimately. So here we have connected all the energy through this model, through these model energies in terms of stretches. Okay, so we have got the total energy as a function of deformation, as a function of stretches. Okay, now how we have to calculate the total stress response? Okay, that is the ultimate actually objective in the model, whatever we are looking for. Okay, so now we have to make the calculation, the stress response through this relation. From where this relation we have obtained by following the balance laws. There are a lot of balance law you have heard, I hope so. Uh, um, Energy conservation, mass conservation, momentum conservation. So using these balance law, it has been derived. Okay, I'm not going to give you so much detail about this derivation. Okay, so if you are really interested, you can mail me after the session. I will give you the detailed derivation for this expression. Okay, so now we can utilize this direct expression in order to get the stress calculation for the rubber like material, which we have actually we are looking for this rubber seat type of configuration. So we can write it down, minus pi plus twice omega 1 are nothing but the, as we have seen, the energy derivative of with respect to I1. Okay, and we can write it down directly. So let's say we are actually we are taking the Mooney-Rivlin type of model example. Okay, so energy density we can take from the Mooney-Rivlin model, which is written in terms of I1 and I2 invariants. Okay, so C1 and C2 are the constant parameter, okay, related to the material property. Okay, we will later calculate these parameter. So C1 I1 minus 3 plus C2 I2 minus 3 we have taken from this Mooney-Rivlin model. Okay, so we can write it down, and we can make small calculation omega 1 and omega 2. So easily you can get the derivative. Okay, so omega 1 will become C1 and omega 2 will become C2. Okay, fine. So you can write it down here. Sigma is the total stress tensor, minus pi, I is the identity matrix. Okay, So you can write it down 100, 010, 001. And similarly, twice omega 1, you are having C1. So you have put it down. Okay. B, which you have already defined here, deformation gradient tensor. This is called left Cauchy Green deformation tensor. Okay. So you can express this in terms of 3 by 3 matrix. So you can directly put it down here. Plus 2 omega 2. So 2 omega 2, we are having C2. Okay. So you can also put it here. And I1 is the first invariant. Okay. So first invariant expression we have seen in terms of principal stretches, lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. So you can write it down here. So I1, B again, we can write it down, and similarly minus B square. So we are having B, so easily we can get the calculation for B square. So it will become lambda 1 4, lambda 2 4, lambda 3 4. What you have to do now, this stress is also having expression just like in matrix. Okay, so these are having diagonal terms sigma 1 1, sigma 2 2, sigma 3 3. Okay, so what we are doing, we are just equating the sides. Okay, left and right side. So in the right side you can write it down, the 1 1 term from this 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, so you will have sigma 1 1 is equal to just like minus pi, so means minus p, and 2c1 times lambda 1 square, and similarly 2c2. So you can just multiply this lambda 1 square in this term, and you can subtract lambda 1 raised to the power 4. So you be easily calculation you can make for the sigma 1 expression. Okay, and similarly you can also write down the sigma 2 minus p plus 2c1 times lambda 2 square, 2c2 times this times lambda 2 square minus lambda 2 4. Okay, so you will have sigma 2 expression, and similarly you can have the expression for sigma 3 3. Okay, so after writing these equation, you will have these are called, you can say that, the general equation of the stress. Fine, till now everything is okay. Now we have to apply some boundary conditions. Okay, so let us try to understand the boundary condition. See, in the rubber sheet we have applied the loading in x direction. Okay, so in the remaining direction we have not applied the loading. Okay, so that is the thing we can think as a boundary condition, that okay, fine, we have applied the loading in x direction or unidirectional, means uniaxial direction deformation we have made. Okay, that's fine. So if we have applied the loading in x direction, then the x direction will change. Okay, means lambda 1 will have some value. It will actually get some deform. Okay, it will get some deformation. So we can write it as a lambda 1 is equal to lambda. Okay, means something, a stretch it will have. But due to incompressibility constraint, okay, we can say that we have not applied the loading in x and y direction. Sorry, in y and z direction. So we can say that whatever the deformation it will have equivalent deformation. Okay. So we can say that lambda 2 is equal to lambda 3. Okay. We have not applied any loading. So an incompressibility constraint we have to follow at the same time. So we can say that yes, lambda 2 will be equivalent to the lambda 3. Okay. So we can write it down. We can easily have calculation because lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 is equal to 1. We have expressed this condition from the incompressibility. Okay, so we can have easily calculation. Lambda 1 you can put it down lambda, and lambda 2, lambda 3 will become equivalent. So you will have the calculation lambda 2 and lambda 3 as 1 by root lambda. Okay, so easily you have defined these through the boundary condition of simple uniaxial tension. At the same time, yes, the loading, you can say that yes, we have not loaded the material or whatever the rubber sheet in y and z direction, so it will not having any stress in that direction. Okay, so at the same time you can say that yes, sigma 2 2 and sigma 3 3. So sigma 2 2 is nothing but the stress developed in the y direction. Okay, y cross section. Okay, at the same time, in thickness cross section direction, it is not having any stress. So you can say that sigma 2 2 and sigma 3 3 is equal to 0. only stress you will have in the plane of x direction. Okay, so sigma 11 will not be equal to 0. That is we are interested to calculate, because we have applied the loading in x direction. So this cross section, whatever we are having, this cross section, I mean this side cross section, it is having some stress. Okay, okay, fine. So we can apply these boundary condition. All the things you can put it down in this general equation. So after putting this all the thing, you will have uh, uh, actually after putting sigma 2 to 0.
Excuse me, sir. One
we-
doubt.
yes, yes.
Sir, one thing, if we apply some
Mhm.
external load in x direction, there will be effect
Yes.
in y and z also.
Yes, see, that is actually considered here. What we have done, we have considered applying effect is there. That is why we will call it in x direction. It is having lambda. Okay,
Mhm.
and due to this extension of this lambda in y direction, it is not having lambda. Okay, it is having some. It is not having means some stretch is there. Okay, so ultimately some stretch. But what the thing is that whatever the in x direction, sorry, the remaining direction, the stretches will be equivalent, because ultimately we have to satisfy this incompressibility constraint. Okay.
Actually, from this equation of sigma 22 and sigma 33, it depends
Uh-huh.
on sigma 1, sorry, lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. So this
Mhm.
value will be 0, sigma 22 and sigma 33.
This see, okay, this is what we are saying, that this is saying that ultimately this is a internal stress, whatever the generated stress. Okay,
Okay.
means you can say that these are the equivalent to the external loading. We have not applying any in y and z direction. Okay, so internal asset, whatever it's generating in the direction of in that y and z direction, it is not having equilibrium. So ultimately we can say that the internal force
Mhm.
in the direction of that plane in 2 and 3 there is no any force acting on that direction. That is why we are writing sigma 2 and sigma 3 is equal to 0. Of course, in 1 2 and 1 3 there is a particular stress will act. Okay,
Okay.
there is
And
no any applied force. See,
sorry.
actually sigma 2 is having value non equal to 0 if we have applied any load in y direction. Okay,
Okay.
if I'm not applying any load, means it is not actually having equilibrium in that direction. Okay, so that is why we are writing sigma 22 is equal to 0, and similarly sigma 33. I hope
Also,
so.
sir, you have assumed neglected the effect of lambda raised to the power 4.
Not exactly, not
In generalized equation, I don't see this lambda raised to the power 4.
no, no, it is there. I think if you made some calculation, see, we have multiplied this lambda 1 raised to the power 4, it will cancel out. Okay.
After cancel. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank
So
you.
it will cancel out. It will become like that lambda 1 raised to the power 2, lambda 2 raised to the power 2, and similarly 1, 3. Okay. It will cancel out because
Thank
minus b square term is here. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Ah, okay. So after getting this, and t has been eliminated by using these boundary condition. Okay. So when you will put sigma 2, either sigma 3, any of them. Okay. So if you are putting a sigma 2 is equal to 0, you will get the value of p. Then whatever the value you will get the p, you can replace it here. Okay. For getting the calculation of sigma 11. Okay. So it has been eliminated. So you will have the calculation sigma 1. That's fine. And similarly, you have put it lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. Lambda 1, you have put it lambda 1, lambda, and lambda 1, lambda 2, and lambda 3, you have put it 1 by root lambda. Because these type of lambda, you have to satisfy this incompressibility constraint. Okay. So you can replace it, all the values here. So you will have this sigma 1 calculation. Now, the new things I want to introduce, not a new thing. If you are belonging to uh, civil and mechanical background, and you will already know these things. Okay, so whatever the calculation for stress we have made it here, these belongs to the Cauchy stress. So Cauchy means uh, these are the stress at instantaneous point. Means stress, how we have defined the internal resistance. Okay, internal resistance or internal force per unit length, sorry, per unit cross section area. So that cross section area, if you are considering at a instantaneous point, means every time you are measuring the means instantaneous area, it is very difficult. Okay, so theoretically it is explaining that it is the ratio of force per unit, means internal force generated in the x direction per unit cross section area, means instantaneous area. Okay, but practically it is not, it is very difficult to calculate each time area in each state of the deformed configuration. So for that, what we are doing, for the actually practical purpose, whenever we are performing any uniaxial test, practically, so what we are doing, we are utilizing the area initially which we have made the calculation, A naught. So every time we are making the stress as a function of, means original area. Okay, so we are defining the stress like that. Force is changing at different state, but area we are saying that it is not changing. Okay, so means in that case we are defining the engineering stress. Okay, so in that case we are changing the we are defining the stress in terms of original area. If we are defining the stress in terms of instantaneous area, then we have differentiated these two different type of stresses: Cauchy stress and engineering stress. So every time we want to connect whatever the model we have developed theoretically, we want to actually match with the practical calculation. So in that case, we have to calculate this engineering stress. Okay, so there is a small actually relation is there. So whatever the calculation you have made in case of Cauchy stress, what you have to do, you just have to actually convert it to convert it in engineering stress, you have to just divide lambda. Okay, so for this you have made easily calculation. I'm not going to show you that one. Okay, so for getting the engineering stress, whatever the Cauchy stress or actual stress you have obtained through the model, you just have to divide by lambda. So you will have the engineering stress. Fine. So these are the model which we have developed analytically. Okay, that's fine. Now suppose we have taken the same seat. Okay, actually in practical sense we have made the same seat, suppose from any rubber. Suppose you are utilizing simple natural rubber. So you have made a natural rubber seat. Suppose let's having dimension, suppose 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and 0.5 millimeter. Okay, having thickness. Okay, and at the same time you have performed the uniaxial test practically. Okay, using the UTM machine. There is a particular machine is there. Okay, through which you can uh, perform the practical. Okay, you can obtain the stretch versus stretch, stress versus stretch response. Okay, practically. Okay, so you will have the data about the stress versus stretch practically. So practically, whatever the stress response you are having, it is in terms of engineering stress. Okay, so from practically, so what we have to do now, what we will do, we will actually fit whatever the model we have obtained analytically. Okay, so you will have the calculation about the engineering stress in terms of sigma as a function of stretch. Of course, we are having, but we have to calculate these material constant. Okay, C1, C2. Okay, so what we will do, we will fit these model from the obtained experimental data, uh, and in order to get this calculation about the material constant. And physically these C1, C2 are nothing but the shear modulus of the material, or modulus of the material. Okay, so here two terms are there. So physically we can say that these are related as the average. You can say that this is the primary modulus and this is the secondary modulus. So you have to take average. Okay, so C1 plus C2 divided by 2 will be the modulus for your rubber, whatever you have actually taken from this experimental data. Okay, so you have to perform the data. So using Hooke's law, if the material you have not extended up to a certain level, let's say you have extended the material, let's say only 1.5 times, or let's say 10% only. In that case, you can apply the Hooke's law. You can get the slope, whatever the stress versus stretch, you will have the calculation about the Young modulus. Okay, modulus. But suppose practically you have stretched the material up to 3 times, suppose 200 times, 300 times. In that case, the slope is not, you cannot easily calculate. So that slope relation, you cannot say that it will give you the information about the modulus. In that case, you have to fit whatever the analytical model you have obtained with this experimental data. Okay, so for that you can easily use the very commonly used tool, MATLAB. Okay, so or any other tool you can also use. Okay, for fitting the analytical model. Okay, analytical expression with the given experimental data. Okay, so this is the story behind the calculation of material property of any rubber, and you will also have the information how much actually force it will have, internal force it will generate, and you stress any rubber. Okay, so all the information you can easily get through this model. In case of uniaxial loading, so this is the complete model. You can say that this is the generalized model. See, we have not exactly defined the dimension. Okay, we have taken the dimension in the general sense, capital L, capital B, capital H. Okay, so you can put all the dimension. Based on that, you can define. We have obtained all the in the generalized sense for the any dimensional form of rubber sheet. So based on that, you can get the information about the material property. You can get the information about the loading, how much loading it will actually have. Suppose you have extended a particular given information. All the things you can note it down through this model. And similarly, this is one of the model. We have used Mooney-Rivlin. Okay, so here again something is there. So what you have to do when you will fit the model, we have used the Mooney-Rivlin model. So during fitting of the data which we have obtained by experimental things. Okay, so this fitting actually best fitting you will not achieve if you are using the Mooney-Rivlin model. Okay, so here drawbacks of various models will come into the picture. Okay, so which type of model you have to choose? So you have to try one by one. So best fit you will achieve in case of most of the time Gent model. Okay, so you will also have. So if you want to compare all the model, so New-Hookean, Mooney-Rivlin, and Gent model. So out of these three models, you can say that yes, Gent model is the having good fitting nature compared to the all the remaining model. Okay, so based on that we will decide which one is good or bad. Okay, so at the same time, if we want to make calculation for Gent model, at the same time what we will do? So we will take the similar expression in case of stretch is response, which we have already seen, minus pi plus 2 omega 1b plus 2 omega 2 I1b minus b square. Okay, so again you will calculate omega 1, omega 2 of course it will be 0 because it is not having actually I2 invariance in the expression. So again you will have the calculation sigma minus pi plus 2 omega 1b. Okay, and I2 of course omega 2 is equal to 0. So you will again have the calculation about the sigma 1 sigma 2 sigma 3. Okay, and again you can apply the boundary condition. Okay, whatever we are having. At the same time you have to satisfy the incompressibility constraint as well. Okay, so the same whatever the process we have learned, you can repeat for this model as well, and again you can get the engineering stress expression, and you can use the modeling fitting tool. This is a particular command you can utilize in case of MATLAB. There is a curve fitting tool command, CF tool. You can use it in case of MATLAB whenever you are having experimental data. So in order to calculate the material property. So one new thing you can observe here in case of Gent material model. So here mu is the modeler, that is okay. So the new material property you can also actually measure in case of rubber elasticity. So that is the JM. So what is physically refines? So basically, GM is actually physical parameter through which you can actually measure the chain extensibility in the rubber-like material, because rubber-like material will show you a particular chain extensibility limit. Means after a certain extension of any rubber-like material, they will not actually extend it. Means at the same time, at a particular level of stretch, the stretch will go infinity. Means there is no any deformation you will not see. Okay, so just like you can take example of chewing gum whenever we are eating. Okay, uh, after means chewing the chewing gum, whenever you are, sometimes we are done in our childhood, we are after chewing, we are extending it. Okay, at a particular time, at a particular stretch, when you are going to extend it, it will not, means it will without applying any load, it will got deformed. So that type of property you can relate in case of rubber elasticity, that is called chain extensibility. So mathematically we can say that at a particular level of stretch, the stress will go infinity. Okay, so that is called chain extensibility limit. So that has not been observed in case of previous Mooney-Rivlin model. So that is why we can say that yes, giant material model is more advanced compared to the Mooney-Rivlin material model. Okay, so this is one of the another example. This is also another model. There are a lot of material model is there. Okay, through which what we are looking, we are trying to fit all the material data which we have done through, we have got through experimentally. So let me show you another PPT or another slide. So I think you will get. Uh, so and this new slide is visible to all. Please confirm me. Hello. Okay, let me share it again.
Visible, sir.
Okay, let me share it again, I think. Okay, wait. Ah. Okay, so I think now what we are looking for, so the same case, but actually I want to show you one graph. Yeah. So everybody can see the graph. It is visible to all. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So let us try to understand this graph. Okay, so in this graph, what we have done. So suppose we have made the experimentation. Okay, in that sheet. Okay, we have made simple sheet, something dimension LBH, and we have performed the uniaxial testing. Okay, and based on that testing, we have got some stress versus stretch data. Okay, so here you can see that the data I have taken from the Crioller experimental, okay, data. Okay, so suppose these are the data, and we have used so many models. Okay, and through these model, what our objective is that our objective is to fit up to whatever the level we can achieve, we want to achieve that one, or the fitting that one, the model which we have derived analytically. Okay, so suppose we have taken a simple case, Mooney-Rivlin model. Okay, so you can see that we will try to fit the Mooney-Rivlin model based stress versus stretch response. So you can see that it is going to fit all the data up to a, you can say that 50 550 times. Okay, so 550 times. Okay, so stretch 5 means 500 times we have extended. Okay, that is the meaning of this stretch. Stretch 1 means original configuration, no extension. Stretch 2 means we have extended 200 times. Whatever the length is there, we have made twice. So we can see that through the model of Mooney-Rivlin material model, which we have obtained the stress versus stress response, it can only capture the data of the material model. It is, you can see that it will work only up to the level of 550 times extension. That is also good. If you are working under 300 times, 400 times, easily you can make the calculation using the Mooney-Rivlin model. At the same time, suppose you want to capture the data or you want to model the rubber-like material more than that extension limit. Okay, so in that case, 550 times, if you want to more than that, model of Mooney-Rivlin model will not work. Okay, so ultimately you have to understand. Fine. So you can say that, let's say you have taken another example, GENT model, okay, which we have seen. Okay, so every time what you are doing, you are changing the total energy density expression, which we are getting from the different type of model. Okay, so now let's say we have taken the example, the GENT model. So again, GENT is also having some limitation. Okay, it is approximately, you can say that, let's see, 600 times. Okay, so up to, or not exactly 600, 590. Okay, so 590, in the range of 590 times extension, it will work. After that, it is also not working properly. So it will not provide you exact, response calculation after 590 times extension. Okay, fine. At the same time, we also have a very good another model that is called modified GENT or augmented GENT model. Okay. So here you can find the expression. Okay. So omega is equal to minus A times ln Im minus I1, Im minus I3 plus B times root I2. Okay. So here we have seen that all the models are written in terms of invariants, and all the invariants can be written in terms of stretches. So ultimately, we can say that whatever the energy, whatever the total energy into the material it is going to store, we are defining in terms of deformation through these different type of energy models. Okay, fine. And in this model also, additional property of chain extensibility can also be captured. So what is that chain extensibility limit? We can try to understand through this model. Okay, through this curve. Here you can see that after a certain limit of the extension lambda, let's see 790. Okay, so 790 times when you will extend, it is going towards the infinity. Okay, stress is going to infinity. Means if you want to extend 800 times, it will not actually get extend because some restriction is there, okay, internally into the rubber like material. So that property is known as the chain extensibility limit. That is a threshold value of the limit, because if you will actually try to understand what is the actually physics behind this extensibility limit, so if you will try to see the internal molecular structure of any rubber like material, so it will looks like we have put it so many chow mein in the plate. Okay, so lots of chains are there. Okay, just like chow means are actually put it one, and lots of chains are wrinkled in actually so many, made some what will people say, dangelingness. Okay, so you can see that suppose chow mein is put it in a plate. Okay, so in that case, suppose when you will apply the loading up to a certain limit is there, through that the chain will extend. After that, chain will deform. Okay, so there is a particular threshold value is also there. After that, there is no possibility of extension in any rubber like material. There is a particular threshold value. That threshold value, uh, it has been measured in the form of chain extensibility limiting parameter. Okay, that is the IM, or in case of GENT, it is denoted by JM. Okay, so that has been also calculated by fitting the analytical model with the given experimental data. So here again you can see that augmented GENT is one of the best model. Okay, recently it has been invented. Sorry, it has been developed I think 2000 recently 2019 or 20. Okay, so recently it has came. Okay, so many this is one of the best model till now. We can say that it is going to capture the data up in the level of 700 times. The remaining model, uh, uh, they are having some limitation after a certain extension limit. Okay, so these are the modeling, you can say that we have understood in case of uniaxial deformation. So whenever we are having any rubber seat, we have applied the loading in a particular one single direction. So for that one, we have derived the analytical model. At the same time, suppose we want to develop the model when we have applied the loading in both direction. Both direction means in two directions, suppose x direction as well as y direction. That is called a biaxial deformation. Biaxial means biaxially means in two direction you have applied the loading. Okay, now let's have a look. So till now, anybody is having any doubt? You can ask me.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, in case of this pneumatic actuator, we apply pressure
Uh-huh.
inside that. So, which type of loading is this, uniaxial or biaxial? Because in that
Okay.
case,
Yeah. In case of pneumatic actuator, suppose we are designing a muscle actuator, we will also have a look. That will configured as a cylindrical shape. Okay,
yes,
we
sir.
have in the configuration. So in that case, we cannot use this plate type of configuration, right? So in that case, we have to use cylindrical configuration. We will also have a look. Maybe after that, I will explain for that model also. Okay.
Thank you.
In that case, we have to take cylindrical configuration and we will apply the loading and we will derive the analytical model. Okay, for that one. Any other question? So till we have understood the uniaxial deformation modeling. So anybody is having any doubt, please? Yeah, you can ask me. Don't hesitate to ask anything. I'm ready to give the answer. Whatever thought is coming, you can discuss with me. Okay, so I think it is clear to all. Okay, so now let us move forward. Okay, so suppose now we have applied the loading in two direction. Okay, so that we will call it as a biaxial deformation condition. Okay, of any rubber seat. Same configuration we are utilizing again. Okay, and now we are applying the load in two direction. So in the diagram, you can see that suppose before deformation, the dimensions again, let's say capital L, capital B, capital H. Now we have applied the mechanical forces in X direction as well as Y direction. And let's say for the sake of simplicity, let's say we have applied the loading in both direction equally. Okay, same amount of force we have applied. Okay, so that is called equibiaxial loading. Equibiaxial means whatever the load we have applied, let's say equally we have applied. Okay, so in that case, we are developing the model. So again, let's say this capital L, capital B, capital H, these are the undeformed dimension. After loading, it has been changed to small l, small v, and small h. Okay. So at the same time, you can define the principal stresses. Okay. So principal stresses are nothing but the ratio of the deformed length to the deformed length. Okay. So we can define it lambda 1 L by L, lambda 2 B by B, lambda 3 small h by h. Okay. And now here is a equibiaxial condition. Okay, equibiaxial condition means we have assumed that the load we have applied equally in two direction. Okay, and at the same time, we can say that in terms of stretch, yes, whatever the extension will take care in x and y direction, that will be equal because we have applied the equal load. Okay, so we can say that yes, lambda 2 and lambda 1 will be equivalent. Let's say it is lambda. And at the same time, we also assuming that material is incompressible. Means volume remains constant after and before loading. So we have the mathematical condition. We have also derived in the previous section. Okay, lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 is equal to 4. Okay, so here we can write lambda 1, lambda 2 is equal to lambda. So it will have lambda 3 1 by lambda square. So in that case, you can define your deformation tensor lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. So you will now it will change. Okay, in the previous case that was different, but now in biaxial case that is different. Okay, so you can make calculation about the left Cauchy Green deformation tensor. Okay, it is nothing but the FFT. Okay, so again the question why it is we are interested to define this. The answer is to make the calculation simpler, because whatever the expression we are having, stress tension, it is written in the form of this deformation tensor B, not in the deformation tensor F. Okay, so we have already calculated this B, lambda square 1 by lambda 4. At the same time, we can have the calculation about the I1, I2, I3 invariants. Okay, so expression will be same. So whatever the expression we have made previously, we have a standard expression for I1, I2, and I3, which we can see that which we have written here. I1 is equal to lambda 1 square, lambda 2 square, lambda 3 square, and I2 is equal to summation of reciprocal 1 by lambda 1 square, 1 by lambda 2 square, 1 by lambda 3 square, and I3 is nothing but the product. Okay, lambda 1 square, lambda 2 square, lambda 3 square. Okay, so these are the invariants. So when you will put these condition of equibiaxial, lambda 1 is equal to lambda, lambda 2 is equal to lambda, lambda 3 is equal to 1 by 1 by lambda square. So you will have invariant calculation. Okay, fine. You have also calculated the invariance. Now directly you can write the expression for stress response. Okay. So now in that case, we are calculating the stress generally. Suppose later we will select the model. Okay. At the previous case, we have selected the model at the initial stage. Okay. Now we are looking for that one. Suppose we have to check so many models. So first we will calculate the stress in generalized sense. Okay. Later we will decide the different type of model we can put it, and we will get the expression for the corresponding stretches. Okay, so we have expression in terms of we have expression of the total stress tensor in terms of deformation tensor. Okay, so we will put t we can write here stress. I have put it in terms of t, no problem. You can write it down stress as a sigma also. So minus pi, I nothing but the identity tensor, 2 omega 1. So here I'm writing as it is omega 1. Okay, I am not selected currently the particular model. So B we have changed. Okay, we can write it down expression of B matrix, and similarly omega 2 and I1 I have calculated. Okay, lambda 1 square, lambda 2 square, lambda 3 square, and lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 we have defined in case of biaxial loading. We can put it down, and we can also write I1B minus B square, and based on that we can have the calculation the T1, T11, T22, T33. Okay, so now we have got these general equation. Now what you have to do, you have to eliminate this pressure. Okay, this is the pressure. Actually in general sense it is defining that material actually it is not incompressible, but after putting the incompressibility condition it is going to eliminate. Okay, so suppose case number 1, we are taking Mooney-Ripple model. Okay, and we have to understand, yes, if we are working under 590%, okay, sorry, 590 times, if we want to work under this stretch limit for Mooney-Ripple, that is okay, no problem. Okay, so if we are selecting this Mooney-Ripple model, so we can put the expression omega 1, so C1, and omega 2 will become C2. So these equation you can easily calculate T11 will be T22. Automatically, when you will get calculation, here you can see that T11 is equal to T22, because we have already assumed that whatever the load we have applied in X and Y direction, that is equal. So of course, stress should also be equal. Okay, so T11, T22 is coming equal. Okay, so T33. So again, we will say that yes, we have applied the loading in X and Y direction. So ultimately, the third direction, whatever we are having, that is stress free. We have not applied any condition, any loading in that section. Okay, so externally it is stress free. Okay, so we can write it down. T33 is equal to 0. So again, when we will put this T33 equal to 0, you will have the expression for this P. And later on, what you have to do, you just have to put this P expression in order to calculate the T11, either T22, because T11 and T22 are equivalent in case of biaxial. Okay, so ultimately you have the calculation about the equibiaxial stress in case of biaxial loading. Okay, so what you have to do now? Okay, I have not mentioned here. You can now calculate the engineering stress. So for these are the Cauchy stress expression. Okay, so in order to calculate the engineering stress, you have to just divide by lambda. Okay, so you will have the expression, analytical expression of stress in terms of stretch uh, uh, from this analytical model. Now again, you will perform the experimental experiment. You will perform the experiment. Okay, using the biaxial condition. Okay, so see, the setup is required to perform the biaxial testing, that is different from the UTM machine. Okay, so there is a biaxial setup. Okay, so that is different setup. So the everything is same, whatever the arrangement is made in such a way that you can apply the loading, two direction, which was not actually available in case of UTM. Okay, so you will perform the experiment, you will get the stress versus stretch data for case of biaxial loading. Then you will fit the data from this analytical derived model, and by fitting the data, you will have the calculation for the C1 and C2. So C1, C2 will tell you the primary and secondary modulus of the material which you have actually worked on. So for getting the exact value of modulus, you will take the average C1 plus C2 divided by 2. So this will gives you the information about the modulus property of the given material. Okay, so that will become equivalent. Either you can perform the UTM based uniaxial testing, either you can perform the biaxial testing. Whenever you will get the data, that will become equal, because the material property is not going to change. Either you can apply the uniaxial loading, either you can apply the biaxial. Okay. So in that case, it is your choice. It is your based on the availability of the facility. You can apply the uniaxial testing, either biaxial testing, to get the material property of any rubber-like material. And also at the same time, you want to calculate the response or stress response or loading data for a given deformation. Okay, how much force you are going to apply and what type of how much deformation it will give you. So that type of information easily you can get the calculation through this analytical model, and very accurate in sense. That is the beauty of this analytical model. It can easily verify through experimental data as well. So these are the analytical model, well established, very accurate model are there. Okay, fine. So now, if you are changing the material model, suppose this is the case number 1, we have taken the Mooney-Rivlin model. So we have this expression. Now we further change the another model. This is also very good model, generalized Newtonian model. So in the previous diagram, sorry, in the previous notes, we have seen that augmented Gantt is the good one. So in the parallel case, this generalized Newton model is also predicting all the, so much good range of the deformation. So you can utilize it also. Okay. This is also a recently developed model. I think 2020. I have not mentioned here. Okay. So this is the generalized Newtonian model. So you will have the calculation omega 1. Okay. This is the expression for generalized Newtonian model. Okay. So you will have the expression omega 1, omega 2 is easily you can get it out. Omega 2, of course, it is 0 because I2 is not there. Okay. It is all the things has been defined only by using the single invariant. That is the beauty of this model. It is not using the second invariant, although it is predicting all the ranges of the deformation. Okay, so we will call it as a good one when it is predicting all the ranges of the material deformation with a very simple defining mathematics. So very simple definition if we are using, and at the same time we are also predicting all the things, we will say that yes, it is very good one. So again, you will have calculated omega 1, omega 2. You will put this omega 1 and omega 2 from the calculated generalized equation. Okay, omega 1, omega 2, you can put it down, and you will have the T11 and T22 expression. And at the same time, you can eliminate this pressure by putting T33 is equal to 0, because in the third direction, we have not applied the loading. Okay, so this is the calculation or analytical stress response in terms of stress using the new, or you can say that new generalized Newton model. Okay, at the same time, you can vary for Gantt material model. You will have this expression. So you have to change the material model and try to see whether which material model is actually good or bad. So you can easily check it out. Okay, so you can decide, and you can, based on the material model, you can decide, yes, for this material model, this model is predicting well. Okay, and so based on what range you are working on it, you can utilize the different model. And this is for augmented Gantt model, same calculation. So this is the expression. You will have the calculations omega 1. You will have the calculation omega 2, del omega by del I2. You will put all the values in the stress expression, which we have already calculated in the generalized equation of stress responses. Then you will have the stress versus stretch response in case of equibiaxial condition. Okay. Any doubt in this equibiaxial model? Anybody is having any doubt? Please ask me. Then we will look another one of the actually I think one of the person is saying the muscle designing, which type of configuration we have to use. Cylindrical. Hello. Sorry, what happened? Hello, am I audible? Screen grows.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can
Yes,
see
sir,
the
you are
screen.
audible. Deepak sir,
If-
you are audible.
Screen got now it is fine. Suddenly screen got black. Okay, so please ask me any question if you are having in this biaxial modeling. Then we will move further another configuration. See, I can understand that in a very short time interval time, you cannot get so many ideas, but I'm trying my best. Okay, so try to involve it. If you are getting any doubt, please ask me. The modeling aspect requires not so much difficult, very easy things are there.
Yeah.
You have to just connect properly.
Yeah, dear participants, please, if you have any question in between, as Deepak sir is suggested, you can ask anytime.
Okay, so I hope so it is clear to all.
Yeah.
clear also having two meanings. Clear means nothing you have got, everything is clear.
Yeah.
And second
Yes, sir.
meaning is you have got all the things, everything is clear. Okay, so I think in okay, so can assume that everybody have understood this biaxial modeling. So what is the difference? We have seen that the deformation tensor is changing. Okay, whenever you are actually changing the deformation actually configuration. Okay, so initially when we are seeing the uniaxial type of deformation, so the deformation gradient was different. Okay, but whenever we have changed the loading condition for biaxial, so the deformation gradient tensor will change. Okay, so but the expression, generalized expression about the stress response, that is same for all the type of deformation, even for any type of configuration which we will work on. Okay, so the deformation gradient tensor will vary. Based on that, you have to calculate the stress response. Okay, and if suppose we by using these, what is the importance of this analytical modeling? So suppose I have given you one material in your hand. Okay, so I'm telling you, please try to find this material property of the given material. Then you have to perform this all the exercise. You have to perform the experiment. You have to perform the analytical modeling. Based on that, you can find the material property in terms of modulus. Okay, for each different type of material, suppose I have given you three different type of rubber. Okay, and I'm asking you, please tell me which one is good having plastic property. No, so based on that, how will you decide? So for getting that type of answer, these type of exercise will help you. Okay, actually these type of exercise actually even so many industries are performing. Okay, so mostly rubber industries, I mean to say that tire industry, they are performing so many tests. Okay, these type of exercise they are also performing to get the material properties. Okay, fine. So now let us try to understand another configuration. Okay, that is the most commonly used in case of cylindrical design. Okay, so let us try to understand that one. Whatever. Oh, sorry, something I'm facing little bit difficulty. Let me. Ah, now it is visible to all. Please confirm me. Hello.
Yes, sir. Visible means
Ah,
your folder.
ah,
Folder.
okay, okay. Folder I think visible, but okay, wait. Let me share it again. Complete screen sharing option is not there. Okay, now it is visible. This cylindrical mechanics of cylindrical biomaterial. It is shown.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Ah, okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, now we have seen the fundamental configuration modeling. That is that was rubber seat. Okay. Now, suppose we want to develop the muscle actuator, as we have seen the practical application, McEwen muscle actuator. Okay. So in that case, how the stress will develop, what are the calculation will happen. So okay. So for that case, how the stress and stretch deformation relation we are having. So we want to understand that one. Okay, using by changing the configuration. So suppose we have rubber configuration in looks like cylindrical in shape. Okay, so let's say it is a hollow cylinder. Okay, because we want to apply the pressure inside, so we cannot say it is a solid cylinder. It is, of course, it's a hollow cylinder. Okay, let's say uh, small a, sorry, capital A is the inner radius of the cylinder, and capital B is the outer radius of the cylinder, and capital L is the length of the cylinder. Okay, and here what we are doing, here we can say that whatever the coordinate system now we have to use, we are using the, of course, cylindrical coordinate system, because we have the cylindrical type of geometry. Okay, so r theta z, we can say that suppose we have taken a particular point in the configuration before deformation. So let's say it is having coordinate capital R, capital theta, capital Z. And after deformation, that point particle having different position. Okay, when you apply some pressure into this configuration, so let's say it is going to change. It has got a new position: small r, small theta, and small z. And at the same time, we have defined this configuration mathematically. We can write it down as a whatever the geometrical information we are having from this undeformed configuration we are having. We can write it down like that. Capital R means A is less than equal to capital R. A to B means R is varying inner radius A to B, and after deformation it is varying from small a to small b. So capital A is the undeformed inner radius, and small a is the deformed inner radius. And similarly, capital B is the undeformed outer radius, and small b is the deformed outer radius of the given cylinder. That's fine. And if we will see this cross section from this upper side, okay, so you will have a look in such a manner. Okay, suppose we have applied this pressure inside. Okay, let's say we have applied the pressure capital P inside the cylinder. Okay, and this capital A and capital B are the inner and outer radius. This is the upper side cross section. That's fine. So one thing you have to see that, okay, that whatever the theta, okay, whenever we are or you can say that it's an assumption that we are using, that whenever we are applying the pressure in such configuration, it is not going to rotate. Okay, theta before and after deformation, it is same. It is not going to rotate. Okay, it is not twisting. Okay, so we have applied this assumption. That's fine. So at the same time, we have also assumed that whatever the rubber material we are using in order to make the cylinder, it is incompressible. Means before and after deformation, the material volume is not going to change. So we have also seen that, okay, so we can write it down in terms of the stretch, this incompressibility constraint, like that lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 is equal to 1 we have seen in the previous rubber sheet configuration. But if you want to write it in the cylindrical configuration, in the similar sense, you can write it down. Lambda r, lambda theta, lambda z is equal to 1. Okay, and here lambda r, you can write it down like that. So lambda r nothing but the dr by dr, means change in radius, undeformed radius. Means whatever the radial dimensional change is there, that we have defined the stretch in radial direction. Okay, and at the same time, lambda theta, we have defined arc, whatever the arc change is going to happen, that we have defined the lambda theta. So in the arc we can write it down r theta. Okay, so after deformation we can write it down r theta in terms of small, and before deformation we can write it down r, capital R into capital theta. Okay, so theta we have assumed that it is not going to twist, it is not going to change having any rotation, so we can cancel it out. So we will have r by r. So let's say this r by r, whatever the radial ratio we are having, let's say it is having lambda value. And of course, lambda z before and after deformation, we are assuming that some length will change. Okay, so after deformation, length, let's say small l, and before deformation it was capital L. So let's say this is a ratio. Let's say this is a lambda z. So we will have lambda r in terms of lambda and lambda z because we have this incompressibility constraint. Okay, so you can just put it down lambda theta lambda and lambda z as a lambda z. So you will have lambda r 1 by lambda into lambda z. So you will have calculated lambda r, lambda theta and lambda z. So here you can see that you have two variables. In the previous cases, you were having single variable lambda, but in case of cylindrical configuration, you are playing with the two variables at the same time, lambda and lambda z. Okay, so you can define deformation gradient tensor at the same time you can define left Cauchy Green deformation tensor. Okay, FFT. So just nothing, just you have to square it each diagonal term. Fine. Now what you have to do? Again, whatever the generalized expression we are having, that will not going to change. That is true for all type of configuration. Either you are using rubber seat type of configuration, either you are using cylindrical, either using spherical, whatever you want, you can utilize. Okay, so that that is the expression. That expression can also be written in this sense also. Okay, so either you can write the upper expression, either you can write the lower expression. That is equivalent both. So that are equivalent both because I1b minus b square that is equivalent to minus b inverse. Okay, sorry, b inverse with negative sign. Okay, so out of these two expression, you can utilize any of them. Now what you have to do? You just have to replace all the gradient tensor you have achieved for the given configuration. Okay, so T you can write it down, TRR, T theta theta, T z z. Now we have expression minus PI. So minus PI 100, 010, 001, and omega 1 means del omega by del I1, and B which we have already calculated, so we can put it down here, minus we are using here second expression. Okay, it is very easy to use. Okay, so del omega 2 you can write it down, and B inverse easily we have already B, so B inverse just you have to reciprocate all the diagonal term. Okay, so you will have the calculation about the B inverse. Now again you can easily calculate TRR, T theta theta, T z z, just you have to just equivalent both sides. TRR will become minus P plus 2 del omega by del I1. So till now we are doing the calculation for generalized model. Till now we have not restricted ourselves for the particular model. Later on we will change one by one. So these are the generalized equation for the stress response for the given cylindrical type of configuration. That's fine. Now let's say we are choosing our material model, is energy model or energy density. Let's say we are using the Mooney-Rivlin model, C1 I1 minus 3 plus C2 I2 minus 3. So whatever the expression you are having in the general stress expressions, del omega 1 by del I1, del omega by del I2, you can just calculate it and replace it, these generalized equation. Okay. So you will have this expression if you are using this Mooney-Rivlin material model. And at the same time, you can also put lambda r by r and l by l. So it's your choice whether you want to make the further calculation in terms of lambda. Either you can also make proceed with the radius ratio. So it's up to you which type of variable you want to play. At the same time, you can proceed. But in general, we are playing with the lambda and lambda. We will proceed it further. Now, see, In the previous case, very simple type of boundary condition we were having. We are saying that, okay, in case of uniaxial, whatever the remaining stresses, principal stresses are there, that is, they are the stress-free sections. But here, the boundary condition we have to apply, we have to make equilibrium condition. Okay, so we are in the cylindrical coordinate system. If you will write the main equilibrium balancing in case of cylindrical coordinate, okay, so you will have this expression. Okay, so you will find this expression anywhere. I think in BTech level, I think mechanical engineering, most of the time in heat and mass transfer and so many courses, you have used this equilibrium condition in cylindrical coordinate. Okay, so whenever you will put it down, so you will have this equilibrium condition in terms of stresses. Okay, so TRR, T theta theta, and TZZ. Sorry, TRR. Sorry, TZZ in terms of it is not there. So only TRR and T theta theta terms are there. Okay, so I'm not going into detail how this coming. So the basic understanding you can get that we are balancing the forces. Okay, in the radial coordinate. After getting in terms of stresses, you will have this equilibrium condition. So at the same time, you will have you have already calculated the TRR, T theta theta, and TZ expressions. Okay, so you can just put it down and this equilibrium condition. Okay, so let's see it. What will happen next? So what we have to do? You can write it down just like that. DTRR, so means DT. Let's say, or you can write it down TRR, whatever you want. I have not written RR here. So dr you can take that side. Okay, so you can put the expression T theta theta minus TRR. Okay, so T theta theta minus TRR. So here automatically P will eliminate, because when you will actually get subtraction, okay, it will get removed. You will have expression 2C1 lambda square minus lambda Z square. Okay, so T theta theta minus TRR. Sorry, T theta theta minus TRR. Okay, T theta theta minus TRR. Okay, so when you will put it down, so all the things becomes in terms of lambda. Now, why I was talking about that? Now you have to make the calculation for this integration. Okay, so for making the calculation, you have two options. That by using the Jacobian property, either you have to change this dr in terms of lambda by using the relation this lambda is equal to r by r. Either you have second option, you can just replace this lambda just r by r, and lambda z, of course, lambda z become lambda z. Okay, so you have two options to solve this integration. Okay, and later on, at the same time, you are also applying the boundary condition. Say, what is the boundary condition? That internally we have applied the pressure. Okay, so we will say that, okay, TRR means if we are applying the pressure internally into the cylinder, okay, so we can write it down. It will generate some radial stress. Okay, so radial stress, we will say that at R is equal to Ri means internally we have applied. So we will say that it will compress to the material. So we will write it down pressure as a negative P, minus P. Okay, so we will write it this integration limit, because here stress mean internal stress, external stress means TRR at internal radius, TRR at external radius. At any R, or we can say that, not exactly the external radius, we will say at any R. We are interested to calculate the stress at any R. Here you can see that in the diagram as well. Internal, we have applied the pressure, internal radius small a and external radius capital B, but we are interested to the section which is having in between small a to small b. Okay, so at any R we are interested to calculate the radius, radial stress. So for that one, we will put the limit internal Ri means small a, and at any R we will put as it is whatever the R we are having. Okay, and lambda z, we will say that we are assuming that it's up to you that we are fixing it, means we are taking it as a constant. Okay, we will say that we are it will extend somehow 1.2, we can measure it easily. So it is having we will say that it will got extended, let's say 20% strain or stretch, something, some value is there. So some fixed calculation for a particular extension value, we will provide that. We will say that okay, for the given extension, these type of stresses will generate. Okay, so we will fix this lambda z. That's fine. So we have fixed it. So we are interested to calculate the stresses at any r, and internal stresses will be equivalent to the minus p, because we have got this condition from the boundary level, boundary condition. Okay, and easily you can do this integral calculation. Just basic integration we have to do. Okay, so all the things dr by dr, easily you can do it, integration. And at the same time, one thing also, here capital R is a function of small r again. So you have to change this, you have to express this capital R as a function of a small r, and you have to perform the integration. So how you will get the relation here? So see, we have assumed that the material is incompressible. So material is constant. Sorry, volume is constant. Okay, so you can write this equation before deformation. The volume, you can write the expression pi r square h. We have formula. Okay, so it is a hollow. So pi r square minus a square. At any r, it is having the volume expression before deformation, and this is for after deformation at any cross section of at any r. Okay, so pi will be cancelled out. So you can write the capital R as a function of small r. Okay, and this relation you have to utilize, you have to put it here, then you have to calculate this integral expression. So for the calculation of this integration, analytically you can also perform. In some of the configuration, you can also utilize the MATLAB software. Okay, so sometimes the very easy calculation by just making a small code, you can get the integral value using the MATLAB. Okay, or if you're really interested, it can easily obtainable from the analytical calculation. Okay, so let's say this is the I1 integration. The solution will come as an I1, and this is the second integral I2. So let's say TRR, we are having minus P plus I1 minus I2, and I have calculated I1 and I2 separate here. Okay, I have made analytical calculation. You can easily do it. Simple integration is there. So let's say we have calculated the integral part, integral calculation, and when you will put it down, TRR we have got in terms of capital P or plus something, whatever the integral answer will come. So you have got the TRR, but at the same time we are also interested to get the calculation about the T theta theta. Okay, so TRR we have calculated. So in order to calculate the T theta theta, so what you have to do? You just have to make the subtraction. Okay, so from this generalized equation, what you have to do, just make T theta theta minus TRR. So you will have right side like that. T theta theta, you can write it down. T theta theta minus TRR. Remaining, you can see that the right side portion will come. And TRR already you have calculated. So you can put it down, and these extra term will come into the picture in the expression of P theta theta. And similarly, you want to calculate, if you want to calculate TZZ, at the same time, you can also make subtract T theta theta minus TRR. So P will cancel out. These extra term will come into the picture. Okay. So already TRR, you have made the calculation. These additional term actually will come into the picture in case of TZZ. So ultimately, you have calculated the stress expression TRR, T theta theta, and TZZ in terms of the deformation stretch R, or you can say that R, or in terms of lambda. Okay. So based on that, you can actually ultimately you have, if you want to plot all the stresses, you can easily plot it. Okay, so or you can say that yes, it is varying from small a to small b because internal radius was small a and external radius was small b. These are the deformed radius. So when you will plot all the obtained result, so you will have this nature. And similarly, if you want to plot the remaining stresses, you will find these nature, T theta theta and T z z. So these are the analytical findings. These are very much accurate. You will have the calculation. If you want to make the validation also, you can easily validate these models by doing some experimental analysis as well. Okay, so these type of already researches so many person have done. Okay, I have also extended these relation in case of electrical voltage. So specifically, so in my PhD research, I have extended these modeling, including the mechanical as well as electrical as well as magnetic. So all the category will come. Actually, we can say that the problem will become as electromagnetoelasticity. So I'm proudly say that we are very, I'm the first person that who have proposed this stress response in case of electromagnetoelasticity, because initially people's what they are doing, they are calculating the stresses for each component and they are superimposing together. But the main problem in superimposing that, in case of large deformation, the superposition principle is not valid. See, if you are working in a very small range, that you can superimpose different type of stresses in order to get the total response. But in case of you are working very, 300 times, 400 times, this is not, we cannot superimpose the stresses. Okay, in metallic cases, it is possible because they are going to deform very, very small range. But soft materials, they are deforming in very, large deformation, 200 times, 300 times. So in that case, it is not true to superimpose the stresses. Okay, so I have proposed another, method how to get the stress response. Still, I have not superimposed, but I have used another method. So I have superimposed the energy. Energy can be superimposed anytime, any level of the, so that type of superposition of energy I have utilized and proposed a new theory in case of electromagnetoelasticity. That is also working well in any type of deformation ring. My model is working. So that was my I have done during my PhD research. So I think it is clear. So we have got the model in case of cylindrical loading, when we will apply some pressure into the rubber cylinder, and what are the different type of stresses actually will generate into the cylinder, we can easily calculate. So anyone is having any doubt in this configuration, is you can ask the question. Please. Hello, am I audible to all? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
So please ask if you are having any doubt in this cylindrical type of configuration, basically used in muscle designing. Okay, so we can have this calculation. Any doubt in this model? In cylindrical configuration, little bit integration calculation has came, but very simple, not so much difficult. Everything is understood? Hello?
Dear participants, please, you can ask questions if you have any, because we are going to almost end.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you have any doubt, please ask. Yeah.
Okay, so I think
Yeah,
yes.
I think Deepak sir, really you have made a great effort to
Okay.
to
Thank you, sir.
explain all these things.
Okay,
And in
so
fact,
let
sir,
me.
I have a lot of questions
Yes, yes, sir.
because means I am also interested in this soft robotics and all.
Yes,
But
sir.
I think in these 2-3 minutes it is not possible. So I will call you, and
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
yeah, right.
Anytime.
We will be in touch, and means
Yes, sir.
to do further things in soft robotics.
Yes, sir. Any other participant also, if you want to really interact with me, because we have limited time. So anytime you can ask me anything, whatever you are having in your mind, by mailing me. Okay. So I think my email ID, everything you can get from the Google, just typing in my website, Minute website. Okay. So everything will be there. Okay. So let me conclude the sessions. Okay. So let me recap you what are the things we have seen. Okay. So in the first session, we have introduced so many different type of actuators which we can develop by using the soft material. Okay. Soft material means silicon materials. We can also utilize if we are really interested to make the mechanical loading only. Okay. And at the same time, if we want to include the electrical input as well, so for that we can utilize the dielectric material. Okay. So in case of dielectric material, what the new thing is, we have to take care of the electroding. So because we have to make proper connection for providing the power supply. Okay. So that is the extra care required for that the things. And later on, we have also understood how to fabricate. I have tried you to show the practicality. So we have seen lots of video how we can fabricate the small actuators. Okay. And later on in the second section, we have seen uh, still we have not covered all the things. We have restricted ourselves the mechanical loading. So how the mechanical loading actually will deform the material, how we can quantify this deformation with the application of mechanical loading in any type of soft materials. Okay, so we have discussed the fundamental type of configuration, rubber seat. In case of rubber seat, we have seen the uniaxial loading, and at the same rubber seat, we have also seen the biaxial loading. So in that case, model will change. And at the same time, we have also covered the most important, you can say that very much, applicable in case of muscle designing, the cylindrical type of configuration. Okay. So in that case, what we have, cylindrical type of rubber cylinder. Okay. Rubber, you can say that material rubber cylinder, we will apply some pressure. Okay. And what will happen due to this application of pressure, which type of stress, how the stresses will actually develop, and how this stress calculation we will make it out. So these are the things we have seen. Okay. So I hope so everybody have understood, and you have enjoyed. I hope so. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Deepak Kumar. We really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you very much, and I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah,
thankful to you for inviting me.
yeah. And in future also, we will seek your
Definitely.
yeah, in future. So, dear audience, uh, with this concluding remarks by the Dr. Deepak Kumar, he has means this was a eye-opening session, and I also learned a lot about the how to choose material. And if whoever is interested in soft robotics like me, so we can also take help from Dr. Deepak Kumar sir. Anybody can contact him. He's in MANIT Bhopal. Just you can contact him anytime. So with this, we stop here, and we will take a break of 1 hour lunch break. And the next session we will start at 2:30. Thank you, Dr. Deepak sir. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much, sir. And thank you for all the participants. And thank you very much.
Yeah. Baneji, may I request you to please stop the recording?